things where people, feel like that, that's going to be suppressed. They're going to, and then on top of that, you have the governments appealing to like the worst aspects.
But I do say there is something, though, that happens. Look at the examples I'll give, right? If you have a global warming rally, you get this cross-section. If you have the one they used to do, the World Trade Organization, you get it. Why nothing like that? We do this from time to time, and it seems to be, it's been a critical mass for a long time. It's critical mass. It's not just, ordinary stuff. What do you think? What do you think is missing? A trigger? Like there's been no real... I'll give you one. Look how Egypt with the Twitter. They really came out in the street. They said what they said. They got their government changed. They did what they wanted to do, and that was that. For better or for worse, they acted. Where is that in anywhere else? There hasn't been another one like that. What's your thought anyway? What do you guess?
Well, I think it's because we're at the beginning of it. That's right. What happened in Egypt was in Tunisia and all these places, was the very beginning of that sort of speech sort of thing where they're decided, okay, this is really the way we feel. These guys are all corrupt, but it's still not in a sense where they can do whatever they want. There's still incredible crackdowns. There's still people being thrown in jail for all types of things. So, that's sort of, the sort of thing that we're used to in terms of, like you're saying, like the, what's going on with the global warming protests, all that sort of stuff. It's not, we're not at that point yet. Or they're not at that point yet where they can just, they can express their viewpoints and get it out. And also, you got to remember there's got to be a time where their societies, have been a big part of it. They're in development in terms of like the way we think of issues. Our society has developed, in different ways incredibly since say the 1940s, 1950s. Think of all the changes. They're in a sort of state where they're, not even there yet. You go to the UAE or any of these places, and there's these incredible laws in the books. It's not just that attitude; it's the laws in the books that can, suppress in terms of being an apostate.
All right, but you got to watch out now. This is where I usually start to lose my patience with these people, whomever they are, because of how long things go on. Everybody decides a moment and says, we're going to get England out of our colony, or we're going to kick France out of Nigeria, or we're going to kick France out of Vietnam, we're going to kick Britain out of, New Zealand. There's always a moment. Australia. There's always a moment. Scotland just went through. They try to have a moment, right? They came real close. They did not have their moment, right? It really, if you're going to do what Scotland did, you can't win by one vote either. You got to win by 20%. You got to have a real mandate to do something like that, to break away, don't you?
That's right. Absolutely. That's and that's the point with these other countries. The thing is, when they do get rid of the colonialists or whoever's in power, who takes over? A bunch of guys, a new goon squad takes over who has a consolidation of power, who have been dealing with the colonialists for so many years. And now you got a problem because they have no interest in bringing our country up to a place of...
You said a mouthful, my friend. Yesterday, I had on one of my fellow hosts. He's on the weekend. He's a very scholarly man. He's very strong feelings about the world. And he was very upset with me over this very issue. There is two ways of looking at this. There's either, we haven't struck the right system yet, was his proposition. We are not using world capitalism is never going to break the poverty, the cycle of violence, the cycle of sex trafficking, all these ugly things about the world. He says capitalism is keeping them going. So, of course, we had a little difference of opinion there.
Right.
But the point I'm making is you're onto something here. You're onto it. If it's developmental, that's very good news. That means it's almost inevitable. The way the ocean will always hit the shore. It's just going to eventually, it all comes around. I'm very curious because the 20th century teaches me human intervention can do plenty of bad stuff. Do we still need one good, righteous country leading with the most wealth, the most money, the highest standard of living, and then everybody is trying to get, keep up with that, the science, the medicine, because we used to be that. Now it looks like we might not be that. And I'm curious, do we need that? Does somebody have to play the role of, well, they have it the best, they're the most peaceful, it's the freest to walk down their streets, you could earn the most money, you could be broke and turn rich, you could da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Are we no longer that? Because it really starting to look like we're not. And some people say, well, that's a false god you're worshiping, Ed. No, but I don't know about that. Somebody's always number one by default, aren't they?
I mean, most of the time there are there are lead countries, and I think in a lot of ways you're right. We have fallen for many, many reasons. I mean, after World War II, we're at the top of the heap because we had access to world markets, we had just won the war, all types of reasons. And, the Cold War did, a real number on, our infrastructure in our society, for better or for worse, whatever argument you want, one way or the other. I mean, that was the cities took a big hit because of that. But given that, I mean, I think what's going to happen is, and you can argue the internet might be a big part of this, is that people are starting to, understand what's going on in different places, and they're understanding, where maybe the best thing for particular things are. Say in certain countries there might be like high aspects of medicine that they might want to replicate. Okay, well, certain countries, we should be like these countries in that, or we should be over here. We should be like these countries when it comes to infrastructure. And I think that might take the place of what you're talking about, so that lead country that takes over. Well, and I think you're right. It probably is inevitable that things will kind of go forward, and that's what you saw with the Arab Spring.
Well, there is a book out right now. I saw the author interviewed on C-SPAN, and his theory is that we're about to reemerge again. In other words, that we're kind of pulsating, and that we'll leap forward again, and then it will slowly come back to near parity, then we'll leap forward again. He said, because intrinsically, our system is always inching forward, even when it's not. So the minute it can expand, it surges a little to make up for lost time. He said it's really just like a physics thing. He goes, we don't have it organized well all the time. We go into recession, corruption, but still the thing itself is still breathing. So the minute you give it room, an extra, you build an extra room in the house, it fills it up right away. So that's a very good theory, because it's the only one I've heard that contradicts the downward spiral theory. I mean, you could argue downward spiral right now. You got less people reading, less people articulate, less people educated, less people applying their education than in the last 50 years. The ratios are horrible. So,
sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let me switch you to another topic then. But let's get off that one and get into... Listen, there's an answer to everything. That's my next topic. I have an answer for everything. I try. That's my job on the show. What is the answer to... Jeb Bush is the answer to everything. He's a nice guy. He has a Spanish wife. He will, he's a Republican. He's not like his brother. He's like the opposite of his brother. So all the people that hated his brother will automatically like him. And then the closer for me is he put up a Facebook post where he's walking down the street and he goes, "Hey, it's me, Jeb Bush. And I know things are tough. I just want you to know I'm going to see what I can do about it. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later." And that was it.
Great. That was it. I know. I'd seen that. It was like, well, I'm thinking about it. And then, like anybody else's Facebook post, except he's thinking of running for president.
Yeah.
He's brilliant about it.
I said, well, this guy, Obama didn't figure this out in 6 years. He could have walked around and said, "Hey, it's me, Barack Obama. I'm hitting a few golf balls. How you doing today? I got Eric Dickerson over here. Bam, bam." He could have done any of this. It's very powerful to just stand there You know what I liked about Jeb's post? He's got that coat on, like he's going to a meeting and it's cold outside. It's a
he's got that look. That's great. That is compelling. Yeah, right.
It's a winter walk, and his face is all chapped from the wind. Like he's got that fair skin, so his face is all rosacea, rosy red. He's got his black coat on there, like he's on the way to close on some house he bought. He looks like he's going to a house closing.
Right.
So I said, well, this guy's awesome because he is. See, you know what's going to happen? My girl is going to get aced out. He's going to ace out my girl Hillary. I believe they appeal to the same people. I think they get the middle. The middle wants them.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that because Hillary, is kind of like sort of left of center, and Jeb comes right of center. It'll be interesting with Jeb because there's been a lot of talk about him not appealing to a lot of the I wouldn't say the hardcore Republicans, the Republicans who really make the decisions, who want to see somebody like a more conservative run because of his apparently his stance on immigration is not as hard as, say, I guess somebody, other people that might be running the Republican Party. That might be a negative for him. And then there's, even within, I've heard even Republicans say within, in context talking to me that, they don't want to see a third Bush. It's funny. There's this aspect too of like, now we're getting to the fact that we almost have like a royal family. Now, this is interesting because this is Republicans have told me this, not Democrats. I think you're right in some sense. I think he is the sort of the odds-on favorite at this point.
It's funny. You just gave me his slogan. By the way you analyzed it, I just came out with the slogan now. Vote for Jeb. The third Bush is a charm.
Well, they're pushing that.
Third time is a charm. The father was too hot. The son was too cold. He's the Goldilocks Bush. He's not too hot. He's not too cold. Remember Goldilocks? I don't want this bowl of soup. It's too hot. Well, then what about this one? Well, that one's too cold. Well, how's this? Oh, this one's just right.
What was it?
He's Goldie Bush. He's Goldie Bush.
Yeah.
He's Goldie Bush.
Right. Exactly right. The right side, just the
because
right side.
Don't you think if Jeb Bush gets cornered in a hallway, he'll probably give in if somebody starts crying. I don't care who it is, old lady, little kid, foreigner, a soldier. He'll go, all right, I gotcha. I think George W. would have been like, I have to go. He wouldn't engage you on the
right.
On
that was the thing. Absolutely, because he was always detached. The whole thing with him with the supermarket, and he didn't know that the supermarket, that the
scanner,
machine, this is like early '90s at work.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on, and then the son was the first one. W was completely not interested in the warm and fuzzy. He doesn't care. He's like, well, I could be warm and fuzzy, but I don't think I should be. And you go, but you should. So this one is his nice brother. Like in the movie, there's a movie called W. I loved Oliver Stone movie, and the actor who plays Jeb is the nicer kid. He's the kid that tries to make nice. Like when the father's fighting with W, he's like, come on, you guys, break it up, that's who he is. And I think America loves those kind of guys. If he can weather the storm, don't forget, they're going to get nasty on him, man. It hasn't even started. Sure. Yeah, they'll go deep on his bad behavior, all the way.
Well, it's not just going to be his bad behavior. It's going to be any sort of baggage that, his brother and his father have. I mean, that's on top of it.
Well, that's his answer. At least he's got a good answer. He goes, my brother made me do that. It's like, so how did you get the cocaine, Jeb? Well, I don't want to say it was my brother, but, So I don't think he did that stuff. I think he was afraid of that. I'll be honest with you. I think his brother was the cowboy. I think W was never going to turn down a dare. Never turned down a dare, W. I think that Jeb turned down many dares. I don't think Jeb is into being dared. I think he's a smarter kid altogether. Kid. They call him a kid. He's probably 2 years younger than me. How old is he? He's in his 50s, isn't he?
It's got to be that. Oh, probably. Yeah. Is he younger? Is he younger than W? I mean, because W's got to be up there.
Yeah. No, he was a few. I think he was 4 or 5 years younger. I think W is in the 65-ish crowd now.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So maybe he's late 50s, something like that.
I got a couple of numbers to lay on you, my friend. I hope you're sitting down. Are you sitting down in Ventura Highway, wherever you're having coffee there, Ventura's? Venturino's?
Yeah. Actually, I'm standing up.
You're standing up. Good. All right. Well, brace yourself. Sunday, the 18th of January, will be the 40th anniversary of me on WRLB, Long Branch, New Jersey.
Wow. Oh, boy, man.
40. 40. You're not even 40 yet. I was on the air before you before you were born.
I probably heard you driving back and forth, going back, because I had an uncle who lived in Point Pleasant, and we used to drive back and forth. We used to listen to Bob Grant in the day, but he used to turn and twist the dial, and I am sure that you came up at certain points.
Well, the station, there, I'll tell you, the station was great because RLB stands for Radio Long Branch, New Jersey. W Radio Long Branch, RLB. But it was an AM/FM combination. So so I love the sister station. The sister station was WOND for Wonderful Radio.
Who came up with that brilliant idea?
Oh man! And they had the guy. So they had a guy who played the beautiful music, and he would be like, "Good afternoon, good afternoon, and welcome. My name is Clifford, and this next song from the Ray Conniff Singers." And he was just in it, man. So I see him one day. I finally met him because I was like, I hear his voice. It's like the voice of God. So I finally see him. He's got a long, droopy mustache, and I go, "Hey, Cliff, what's going on?" And he goes, "Nothing, man. You want a hit?" And he's smoking pot right outside the studio. I said, "Oh, my God, he's going to get me arrested. I'm a kid." I said, "I can't." I said, "Thank you anyway, Cliff." And I went right down the hall, man. He could have cared less what was going on. He didn't, I thought it was the opposite. I thought he was going to have like a tie and a shirt and what do you call it, a crew cut and white socks.
That's great.
You want a hit? It's like the guy that comes up to you. Where's the titty bar? Where's the titty bar? It's the same thing. It's the same guy.
I know. Yeah, it just comes out of nowhere. It's just the guys with a voice like that.
And you go, what is that? What do I look like? First of all, I looked like 11 when I was 19. I had no facial hair. I'm skinny. I'm sure he looked like he was 100, like a 100-year-old hippie. The long hair, the droopy mustache. Droopy. Those were the days. So, so 40 years on the air, and then I had something else. I had another numerical value for you since you're a mathematician. 40 on the thing, and I don't know. It eludes me now, so I'll have to get it back. All right. So what's new with you? Where should people find you these days? I know you're doing.
I had a nice show the other night. I did a show at Under St. Mark's. It was part of what was known as the Frigid Festival. And I'm going to try to be hopefully coming up doing more shows there, more like possibly one-man shows there. But it was, that's if people go see me. That I'll be there a lot on Tuesday nights, and then I'm going to try to see if I can get a series of one-man shows there. It's Under St. Mark's between First and A. I think it's called. I think it's 87 Under St. Mark's.
Excellent. Well, that's a great venue, great neighborhood, legendary.
You've been there. We performed there. It's a beautiful black box theater. It was a great show. It wasn't a huge crowd, but they were great. And I talked about my life, politics, science, and they loved it. And it was just, it's one of those places where you get people who, are really open to just points of view. And that's why we love doing comedy, because that's what we want to do. We want to talk about, what's going on and what's important to us.
Well, for me, it's always funny what's going on with you. I think it's it's one thing to hear what's going on with people. You're especially funny to hear from. So now I'll pop this on you because it's obviously unanswerable. So I'm telling you there's no good answer here, but I am going to ask because you mentioned science. You love science, right?
Right. The big,
right.
math and science stuff.
You got it. Exactly. Math and science. So I'm going to ask you this. I'm watching one of these specials on the Learning Channel, and the guy says, still now, in this moment, the Big Bang is continuing to happen. Like, it wasn't just then. The Big Bang is the whole thing, and that it will come apart on the other side, and it could easily happen again, but that is what's happening. He said, no, make no mistake about this now. He goes, the planets, the moon, the stars, everything, the meteors, the whole thing fits perfectly. This thing is, from the moment of explosion, continuing an explosion. And
right.
if that's true, does that knock out all religion, boom, done? Or religion is the understanding of the Big Bang, of physics. Religion is really trying to understand physics.
I've heard people use that point of view of like, okay, well, what started the Big Bang? It is this, you want to consider it a singularity or whatever. What started that? And then could religion sort of like sneak into, the origins of that? I mean, just that idea itself, though, of a Big Bang, we take space for granted, but the fact that within the context of Big Bang, space itself is kind of expanding. It's not just, it's not just like the thing's expanding into some emptiness. That space, the space itself is there expanding. It's just a really, pretty intense concept right there.
Right. Couldn't it really be, I mean, again, you're a math guy, so there must be a formula somewhere somebody attempted. Isn't there a way of seeing the universe in scale? That you would find these tiny micro dots, and that would be the people, and then the bigger things are the bigger things. But, I mean, it really is a thing in scale, right? I mean, all these bodies are blowing around out there, radiation belts and protection belts and ozones. I mean, this really is what it is, right? I mean, it's no longer a mystery, like we don't know. Maybe it's ghosts, maybe it's the saints, maybe it's we know it's these rocks and everything spinning around, don't we?
I mean, the reality is, even with any sort of, scientific theories about, particle physics or whatever, there are limitations to all of it. I mean, it's not one of the, I think, mythologies that people, that almost, I think sometimes science kind of maybe inadvertently presents is that, sort of everything is sort of, can be explainable. You can write these equations down. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that basically you can approximate it, but that's as far as it goes. So it's,
now here's the way it sounds to a layman, and you give me the yes/nos on this because you know the backstory. But to a layman, it looks like we've surveyed all the territories. We just don't know everything about the places that we know exist because either they're far away to get to or they're impractical for our species with the spaceship, etc. But we're not still finding out places that are. Aren't we finding about discovering what we know? Like, in other words, Mars now, much deeper understanding. But Mars has been known for quite a long time. Or are we still, there's another whole thing yet we don't know. Which is it like? Have we mapped this thing out and we're just learning what we mapped, or we really haven't mapped it?
I would say it's more that we really haven't. We have like a very like light skeleton of the map. That's what I would say. And again, not especially anything with astronomy, that sort of thing. But, I just have like sort of superfluous knowledge of it. But it's basically where you have, I mean, you can do lots of like, observations in terms of like the different distribution of elements and these different stars or galaxies, and people do that. But when it comes to like the sort of the analysis you were talking before about like sort of nailing things down, I mean, just the most basic thing that comes to the weather. I mean, the weather is like something we've been dealing with for a long time. We still can't make accurate predictions of it. I mean, we're better at it, but the models that go into it have their limitations, and it's the same sort of thing with a lot of this stuff. So it's I mean, it's only as good as like the hypothesis that you put into it, and that's where we're at.
Boy, you are. You're a hypothesis and a hypotenuse guy at the same time.
Right.
Right?
It's funny, right?
You're into the hypothesis and the hypotenuse. I remember the day they taught us the hypotenuse. I could not get it through my head that it was different than hypothesis. And then they wrote it out, and I saw the EN in the middle, and I buy it now. Oh, man, you're so smart. So now I'll flip you to the wind up on a very relevant note. Our network has embarked on this new year looking at the personal side of police. Not looking at violence on the 5 o'clock news and fires building, but men and women who don't get indicted, who don't kill anybody, but they really are sincere police. Whether it's a personal experience or what you've heard or what recent or years ago, what comes to mind in your experience when I say that? Who do you think of?
It's a number of people. I mean, I've run into a lot of, cops in the city who I've had conversations with, who are like, came off to me as like, really straightforward, good guys. I also ran into, when I went back, back to my hometown, I ran into a number of people who became cops. And those guys, at the same time, they were, I felt they were like real salt of the earth guys. They're just like, they felt, they were the guys that I played on the football team with. It's one of the things I think, a majority of these cops or people in law enforcement, their whole thing is just to, work hard, not to break any rules. And, they, basically get, put in their time and they retire.
Isn't that really it? Don't you really feel it's safe to say maybe 70 to 80% that is the experience of cops? They really go there to do good. They really don't see a lot of gunfire, not a lot of bank robberies, not a lot of shootouts. They do a lot of pulling you over. You ran a stop sign near the school, which is important. And, a domestic getting loud 11 o'clock at night. I need you guys to go to sleep, or if somebody's coming with me. That kind of management. It's like being an adult hall monitor in high school. Don't yell. Don't punch. Don't this. Don't that. I give that a lot of credit. That seems to me to be a very thankless job, honestly.
Yeah, and it's a tough job, especially when something bad happens and you've got to make a decision. I have strong feelings about the institution itself. In terms of the way I think it probably, could be set up to make things a lot better. Individually, though, I think it might even be higher. I think you might be more than, the reality is it might be maybe 80, 90% of cops. Who knows what percentage it is that are like good, hardworking guys. The problem you run into is that if you have a system that is like, has a loophole or is lax in any way, and you can get guys who are like, the cowboy types or whatever, and they can do what they want, then you have a problem because, they will take down, or will make it really bad for the rest of the other ones.
Well, I'm gonna submit. Now, this is just, life experience teaches me. I don't know that you can ever scrub it all together. I think a job like a firefighter or a police officer or infantry soldier or signing up for the Marines, you necessarily want some element of cowboy in there, or else they're not going to be up to it. It is a hell of a job when it really is, gunfight, or it really is innocent people, or the guy's threatening to shoot his wife if you don't, you're going to need somebody besides Mr. Perfect. Because so I think, I don't want to be unrealistic in what I'm looking for. I don't know if I get everybody who's so perfect, never yells at the mayor and never gets angry. I don't know what's going to happen, man, on crisis day. Am I on to, is that wrong?
No, I agree with you. It's got to, look, if you're in that sort of job, there's going to be that event where you're going to have to, deal with it, because if you don't deal with it the right way, you could also lose your own life. That's the reality of it. The thing is, I think that the way the system has to be looked on is such that if there's some sort of, if there's a setup where you can have like bad behavior sort of, not curtailed in any way that's like systematic in the system, that's the sort of thing that can, really undermine it.
And then let me build on this, because I had an argument about this on the air yesterday, because the guy was saying, look, you just really can't trust them from jump. All right, and I won't go the backstory and digress. Let's just say he arrived at that. You got to be very suspicious the minute they are. All right. Now I'm saying, I said back to him, I got nowhere. Matter of fact, it was very tense for a moment. I said, but here's what I'm asking. No doubt, police feel the obligation now to be more transparent, the body camera. Everybody hears that. I said, but could we go to the other side of the equation and say, Mr. Garner, for example, the heartbreak case, right? The guy who says, I can't breathe. Why wouldn't we now say the lesson is I will take my lawyer for free? It's a free lawyer. Every time they're going to cuff you, you're going to get a lawyer. And if you would zip it, and like every mafia guy does, every real killer out there knows how to shut up, take their lawyer. You don't get beat up when you call for a lawyer because they know the lawyer's going to come and they find you all beat up, you're finished. So it's the referee. They never want to ask for it. And I don't get this. If I thought somebody had it in for me, I'd be looking for the referee right away. Right away. I'm not going to give this guy a chance to say, you know what, officer, let me just get my lawyer on this. Because they didn't say, are you doing wrong? They said, sir, stop selling the cigarettes. And so once they say that, and you've been busted 18 times, it's not your first time in the system. This is what I'm asking. And the guy says to me, forget it. This is outrageous. This is outrageous. We were street kids, and we were afraid to get in that car. So we said, yes, officer, to stay out of the car. Now, we didn't think we'd be beaten alive. We didn't think we'd be killed. But we did not want to be in that car. And this is what I'm asking. Can that be worked? Can that be in the dialogue? Because the guy says, forget it. It's going to go nowhere. The public is not going to speak a certain way. What do you want? You only got human beings on the police side. What's your thought on this?
No, I mean, I was like you. If something happened, my always attitude, and I think what you're implying too, is that you're like, you would say yes, try to diffuse the situation. I mean, I do that even without the cops, whenever I see confrontation. I mean, because that's what it is. The flip side is some people, for whatever reason, are not like that. Now, that presents a problem. But the thing is, then, I mean, is it right for somebody to kind of, where you have a system where guys will just like go, will flip out? I mean, I've heard, there's other, I've heard all types of, consequences or types of cases like this, where I think recently there was somebody in Oklahoma where it was a similar type of thing. The guy resisted or just was kind of questioning what was going on, and like 5 cops basically beat him to death. I mean, it's this sort of, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how you stop it, because it's one of these things where I think this is very, it could be like a herd thing. You get a bunch of guys together, like in anything, they once the light switch flips, they just go crazy. I think what you're saying is definitely true. I think more of that happens, the less sort of things are going to happen. On the other hand, you also have to have.
I really think I think the guys you're describing too. Let's take a look at it. We've seen enough of this on TV. Rodney King is the godfather of all this.
Right.
The whole thing that cops always say, whether they've been in the crisis and now they're telling you what happened, or it's a cop commenting on the subject, saying this is the way we're trained, etc. It's always the same answer. Once they think the subject is capable of injuring them, all bets are off. If you are saying, officer, I do not like the police, and you're a little shrimpy guy like me, they don't feel threatened. But if you start waving your hands and spinning around and getting loud, they really cannot wait to see if you do it first. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to start with, you can't wait for the citizen to go all the way to taking the first free shot against you, and only then do you move. Nobody's going to be a cop like that. There has to be halt. Somebody's got, and I see this. There's a guy we played this morning, and it'll break your heart. He's in Eugene, Oregon, okay, in the middle of the snow country, and it's winter, and he has got a shovel. And he's going door to door bothering people who's have already shoveled, but he's still asking, can I shovel, can I shovel? So somebody calls the cops and says, he's knocking on every door. Could you speak to him? This nice enough police officer walks over. He goes, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm shoveling snow. He goes, well, the people in the town just called me to come over here and ask you to stop knocking if they've already done their driveway. He goes, well, then I'll stand right here until it snows again, and then I'll knock on their door. The cop says, it's probably not a good idea, sir. Well, the guy goes nuts. He picks up the shovel and starts hitting the cop with it.
Oh, well, yeah.
Hit the cop in the face. Hit the cop in the face.
Look, that's a pretty, look, you don't have much of an argument with that. You start going after a cop with a shovel.
With a shovel. Now, I don't want to be flippant. The cop killed him. The cop shot him. The cop shot him dead because he opened up the cop's forehead with a shovel.
Yeah, look, that's like, right, the cop is like, at that point, the cop's under extreme danger, whether, look, you try to, like, bring down the guy is with, also,
I'm telling you, this
in a
cop,
situation like that, you're gonna like go into like with a warrior mode or just
that's it. If they get hit,
so it doesn't surprise me.
Right? The ending for sure. But what I'm saying is the beginning is so misleading that this cop has patience like my father didn't have this much patience. You know what I'm saying? He kept saying every time the guy answered him back, the policeman answered him instead of saying, look, just shut up and move. He never did that. He conversed with the guy, and that's what I mean. Could you imagine if you're a guy, you wake up in the morning, and now you got a guy with a snow shovel. You don't think you have a problem. All I got to do is tell this guy to move. He's going to move. Come on, it's Eugene, Oregon. Nothing's going to happen here.
Right. Well, that's a really tough thing about being a cop.
That's what I'm saying.
That sort of thing can happen.
That was the point.
I guess the thing is, I don't see some of these other cases in the same way. I don't see the Garner case or a lot of this other one. Like I said, I heard in Oklahoma. None of the other ones where basically you have what I would consider a complete overreaction by cops.
Well, let me ask you. All right, so let's talk about Garner a little bit, right? Let's say you're at the beginning of the Garner exchange, and it's the first time he says, I can't breathe. And let's take optimum that they all back off immediately. First word from him about breathing, they all take a step back, okay? That would be the best, right? The first time he mentions his health, they really just...
Right,
right. That'd be the optimum. So we start with that. Okay. So now, if he, as he was, not gasping right out at the moment, if he gathers his breath, then they stand him back up slowly, right? And they're not punching him or anything. They go the whole right route. They're like, all right, hold on, Mr. Garner. Let's first get you breathing, and then we'll talk to you about the cigarettes. Let's say they went that way. If he stands back up, is he supposed to say, I'm sorry and I'm going along, or is he going to start again with, you can't do this to me, because I don't know how the cop is going to be a Svengali here. Is he playing me? Is he will he just cooperate? If he's out of breath, would he cooperate now? Since he's out of breath, will he just cooperate? And we'll get him a doctor as well? But will he cooperate? No, he wants to get his breath so he can continue to resist. So I'm still asking, even if they did the best of the best, are they supposed to negotiate with what they're doing? Are they supposed to stand there and negotiate it, or are they supposed to say, look, you're coming with us, you get a free lawyer, get in the car? What is the bet? Let's say he doesn't get pounced. He gets up on his own 2 feet. What are we supposed to be doing on that corner? What do you think?
Well, if they're going to, there are two things. One is I would say the first thing that shouldn't have happened is when Pantaleo shouldn't have put him in a chokehold. That's the first thing. But beyond that, let's go through your scenario. Say they put him down, whatever. At that point, if they start backing off, even the video I saw, that everybody has seen. I mean, even if he gets out, say he does the chokehold on him, he takes the chokehold off, and now they cuff him. At that point, that's basically it. I mean, they can sit him up, they stand him up. It's the fact that they're on top of the guy, as he's going on, for minutes. And at that point, you're just, you're causing the guy a lot of harm. And it you know, that was basically, you know, just obvious, like anybody would say it was just excessive force that was used at that point. So it's one of these things where, look, it's not, none of this stuff is easy. You know, I mean, it's not, there is like, I think that because of the one thing you talked about with the guy taking the shovel and hitting the cop, right? Every cop knows that can happen, and it might be an issue with training too. I mean, the fact that you can have that, you know, in the back of their head, it's like, you know, maybe they're like totally horrified. This guy's got a gun. This guy's got this. But I mean, at the same time, you know, if you go at them, at these guys like that, I mean, you see how many guys go down.
You know how I am, though. You know, you and I are a little different in this aspect. Okay, I'm going to try this approach on your last setup there. Okay, if we're at the point of he's claiming health, and they simply want to subdue him with a peaceful arrest. Okay. If we start those two things, he's invoking health. They want a good arrest. They don't want a dead guy. They want a real good arrest, and that's all they want. Okay. When it's imperfect to judge, are we really going to blame the cop if it goes wrong? I understand that in